So many of us can say in so many different contexts in our lives that, we have this gut instinct, right? And so with scams and fraud and all these sorts of things, if something feels off, it probably is.
The most common form of elder abuse in Kansas is financial abuse, and it's often carried out through a variety of scams. These scams, which often seem legitimate, can be financially devastating. Unfortunately, determining the legitimacy of something can be challenging because scam artists will work tirelessly to gain your trust and are skilled at persuasion. Kansas State University Assistant Professor and K-State Research and Extension Adult Development and Aging Specialist Erin Yelland discusses some of the common scams and how to reduce the risk of becoming a victim. On today's Sound Living, protecting against senior scams. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. Yelland says more than 5 million older adults, those age 65 and older, fall victim to what are considered senior scams every year.
And we have seen these scams, at least the ones that are reported, are estimated to cost billions and billions of dollars each year. And seniors are an easy target in some ways, and so that's even more concerning. But it's incredibly prevalent and an awful thing that we are experiencing on a daily basis.
What are some of the reasons why they're so well targeted?
So one of the reasons, and this is according to the FBI, is that many people who are born in the 30s, 40s, and 50s are generally more trusting than people who were born in later generations. Many of them have nest eggs, meaning that they have large amounts of money in some cases set aside. They may also own their own home, which then puts people at a higher risk for these reverse mortgage scams and things like that. Also, they're less likely to report fraud and to maybe even be aware that they have been a victim of fraud.
And they're targeting them in a variety of ways: telephone, door-to-door, advertisements, the internet, basically any way they can get in contact with them. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, so we will see that older adults are still targeted in more of these traditional methods, such as over the phone and door-to-door types of scams. We generally will not see scammers targeting younger people via those methods because younger people tend to be more aware, less polite, and less trusting than those older generations, but they will still target them via the internet. People who have less experience with technology may not be as aware and understanding of how people may try and get their information on the internet. So because of that sort of lack of knowledge, lack of experience, it can make it pretty easy for people to target them on the internet.
So what are some of the strategies then that they're using? They're trying to act like they're a friend, somebody that they know? How are they doing this?
Yeah, so that's a common method, especially over the telephone, because you can't see the person. So they may pretend to be someone else. And one of the most popular scams of sorts in this arena is the grandparent scam, where someone will call and pretend to be a grandchild. They'll call and say, "Hey, Grandma, it's me. I got in trouble. I need you to wire me some money so I can get out of jail. Please don't tell my parents." It's very vague type of information that they're providing over the phone. And we can also see this by people who are pretending to be professionals as well. For example, someone can come and pretend to be a roof contractor after a major hailstorm in the area. They get thousands of dollars out of you to pay for this new roof, and then they do shoddy work. But we will also see scammers using things like scare tactics and threats. And this is particularly common when they may call and say, "This is the IRS, you owe us money, and if you don't do that, we're going to take away your home." That would be scary for anyone to hear, right? But we'll also see the opposite, where scammers will pretend to be incredibly friendly and charitable and sympathetic towards the individual themselves. So really, any way that you can think to scam an older adult or anyone in general, the scammers know how to do it, and they're practicing all of these types of tactics. So we want to be particularly vigilant, no matter what your age is, to be sure that people are who they say they are. ask for identification, even ask for multiple forms of identification, or ask for proof that someone is bonded and insured if they come to your house offering to do repairs. Do an internet search on the individual's name as well as the company name that they've provided. Call the Better Business Bureau and ask questions. It is always so much more beneficial to ask these questions and be suspicious than obviously to be scammed.
And some of these scams fall into different categories. We kind of covered the ones that deal with strangers, people that we don't know. Then there's also some professional type scams and even family members.
There's several types of ways that people can pretend to be professionals and scam you out of money or services or goods. And some of the ways that we'll see this happen is through loans and reverse mortgage scams. We'll also see this through annuity sales and investments. So people who are pretending to be professionals to help you out financially, but in the end, they're really just after your money. Something else that's really interesting that we see more commonly with older adults is the issue of counterfeit prescriptions. And the reason that we see this more commonly with older adults is because they're simply on more medication than generally younger individuals are. So what will happen in this instance is that it'll be some sort of online company, or they'll call you over the phone and say, hey, we had extra stock of this type of medication, and most commonly it'll be a common medication that many people are on, and they will offer it to you for a cheaper price. And then you'll send them the money, and then what will happen is that they will essentially send you sugar pills in the mail. Not only does this harm people financially, but it also is harming their health. We will also see funerals and cemetery scams. So again, they're pretending to offer you a legitimate service, just as they were in the counterfeit prescription scam, but in the end, they're just getting your money and you're not going to get the cemetery plot that they're selling you.
The family may be really disturbing because a lot of the things that can happen in a negative sense are designed originally to be something positive, where you maybe give someone power of attorney, or you allow them onto a joint bank account so that they can make payments if they need to in case you have to go to the hospital or you're unable to do it yourself. A lot of these seem legitimate.
Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of the abuse that is done to older adults, whether that's physical or financial, emotional, or neglect, is most commonly perpetrated by family members. So this is something that we need to be especially cognizant of. Oftentimes we can see that when someone is scammed or abused via a power of attorney, is that a family member will essentially threaten them into signing this document, which makes an individual a power of attorney. And being a power of attorney, at least in the legal and financial sense, gives that individual the right to make decisions on your behalf regarding your financial and legal matters. We can also see this happen with a durable power of attorney for healthcare as well. So that will give an individual a right to make your healthcare decisions. And in this case, it's really devastating to think about. But if you were to give someone, the right to make decisions for your healthcare, and that individual wanted your life insurance money, they may make decisions for you that will not help you to sustain your life. So we really need to be aware and watching out for our family members to make sure that these types of powers of attorney are legitimate and that they are done with actual consent from the older adult themselves.
And I would imagine this is probably the least reported offense of any of the scams that we've talked about.
Absolutely. This is by far 100% true that most of the time when an individual is a victim of a scam or abuse by a family member, that individual is going to have some hesitancy to report, if they will report at all, and many times they don't. And for that reason, it's incredibly difficult for researchers to estimate the number of people who are victims of abuse. And if you put yourself in that person's shoes, perhaps it's a grandchild that has abused you. You don't want that grandchild to get in trouble, so you just simply keep your mouth shut and you don't report it. And because of that, these seniors are not able to get the help that they need. The individual who is actually scamming you is not going to get sort of the consequences that they deserve, but also the help that they need to make better choices in life. So it's really common that family members abuse and then we don't report it.
So how can we protect ourselves? How can seniors protect themselves?
So the number one tip I provide on many different topics is to educate yourself and to realize that knowledge is power. So understanding what the current scams are, sort of how to protect yourself, what to look out for is really, really helpful. So that can help you to make better decisions, but also keep yourself more informed so that you can help other people around you as well.
I know you said earlier that seniors are often very nice. They're friendly. They don't like to treat people rudely, but sometimes you do have to either not answer the phone or hang up if you're uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I will say this in many different circumstances. If you're ever uncomfortable, get out. So if you are in person, for example, and someone comes to your door, go inside your home and lock the door. Or if that individual is inside of your home and you no longer feel comfortable, go to a neighbor's house and call the police. Get yourself out of the situation. If this is over the phone, hang up. Don't worry about hurting someone's feelings, because if the person is legitimate, they will understand that perhaps you didn't understand who they were and you just felt uncomfortable or frustrated. And so no one's going to be mad at you for making a choice that's going to protect yourself. And then if this is happening to you on the internet or something pops up on your browser, pops up on the screen, don't be afraid to X out. Even if it says, if you don't click here, something really bad is going to happen to you, X out of the screen. If you don't see an X on the screen, which many advertisements and things now sort of make the little X pretty hidden, where it's even hard for me to find it as sort of a technologically savvy person, just turn the computer off. You're not going to make it blow up if you just go down and push and hold the power button to turn it off. Get yourself out of the situation, no matter what the situation is, if you feel uncomfortable or threatened or you're just not sure.
And always protect your personal, private information.
Yeah, so never give away your Social Security number, your Medicare number, all these sorts of things you want to keep secure. If a person legitimately needs that information, they can send you a letter through the mail requesting that you call them at this number. We will oftentimes see that happen through Medicare. Medicare will never ask you for your personal information over the phone. And actually, Medicare should already have that information on file, right? So if they're asking for it, it kind of raises some red flags. Now, if they ask you for the last 4 of your Social Security number or the last 4 of your Medicare number, that's a little different. But never give anyone the entire number, especially over the phone or in person, unless you're 100% positive that the person is legitimate and that they really are there to help you.
We should also mention the fact that passwords, having strong passwords, are important, and making sure that your software, especially your security software, is always up to date.
So many websites will now require you to have strong passwords. And a strong password typically means that you will have lowercase letters, uppercase letters, numbers, symbols, those sorts of things that make your password more secure. And by more secure, I mean that it's less easy for people to guess, and it's also more difficult for computer algorithms to sort of figure out what your password might be. So we always want to make sure that we're using strong passwords. And something to consider is some of these password managers where it will create a random string of digits for you. That might be something that's beneficial for you to use. But with your software that's actually on your computer, meant to provide your computer security and meant to provide you security, you also want to make sure that you have that on your computer and that it's up to date, but also that it's legitimate.
And I think that kind of gets to your last bit of information, is to trust your gut. Sometimes that's the best measure of whether something is right or wrong.
Absolutely. And so many of us can say in so many different contexts in our lives that, we have this gut instinct, right? And so with scams and fraud and all these sorts of things, if something feels off, it probably is. And if it isn't, it's okay to make a mistake and think that maybe someone was in fact trying to scam me when they really weren't. But if you ever feel uncomfortable, just get yourself out of the situation.
That's K-State Research and Extension Adult Development and Aging Specialist Erin Yelland. The Extension publication, Elder Abuse and Neglect, What You Need to Know, includes information on common senior scams. It's available online and through county or district extension offices. And to sign up to receive scam alerts from the Federal Trade Commission, go to ftc.gov/scams. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.